Good morning, fifth graders. Today we are going to practice estimating the sums and differences of fractions using benchmarks. So last week we found exact sums, which means we found the answer to an addition problem, and exact differences, which means we found the answer to a subtraction problem. But this week we are going to practice estimating, which means we're rounding. When we use fractions, if you remember from 2 weeks ago, when we estimate with fractions, we use benchmark fractions, which means we go to the nearest whole number or half number. So the nearest 0, 1/2, or 1 whole. Here is an example of what you're going to be doing today. The directions are right here, and you can see this one we are estimating the sum because it is an addition problem. So step 1 says write the equivalent fractions to 0, 1/2, and 1 whole on the number line for the first fraction. So here's our first fraction. I see my first number line right here has 0, 1/2, and 1 whole. This fraction is 10/12, meaning it is out of 12. So our 0, 1/2, and 1 whole, the equivalent fractions, are all going to have 12 as their denominator. So that's what I'm going to start with. 0 would be the same as 0/12. That means if I had the whole thing, 1 whole, would mean I have every piece, so it would be 12/12. 1/2 would mean that I have half of my 12 pieces. Half of 12 is 6 because 12 divided by 2 is 6. So I have done step 1 right now. You're going to do that too. Step 2 says use the fraction bars to place the fraction on the number line. Remember that when we're using these and placing them on the number line, it's easiest to use our control button on our keyboard. It's at the bottom left of your keyboard so that you can drag them all over at once and they can stay together. Our fraction is 10/12. So I'm going to press the control button and I'm going to click 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10/12. Then I'm going to let go of the control button and drag this over here. And I'm going to match it up with my 0 right here. And I can very clearly see that this is closer to 1 whole than it is to 1/2. And it's way closer to 1 whole than it is to 0, where it ends right here. So step 3 says, under the first fraction, write the benchmark it is closest to, 0, 1/2, or 1 whole. Well, it's closest to 1 whole, so right here I'm going to put the number 1. Step 4 says repeat steps 1 through 3 for the second fraction. Well, here's my second fraction, 3/7. So again, I'm going to make equivalent fractions to 0, 1/2, and 1 whole, but I'm using sevenths. So the first thing I'm going to do is put a 7 in the denominator of all 3 of these equivalent fractions. I know that 0 would mean I have 0 pieces out of my 7. And 1 whole means I have the entire thing. It means I have every piece, so 7/7. 1/2 is a little bit trickier with this one because this is an odd number. Remember that if we have an odd number, we can just say, okay, well, let's go one number less than that to an even number, which is 6. Half of 6 is 3. And then we would take our last between 6 and 7 and we would cut that in half. If we take one whole number and cut it in half, we would get 0.5 or 1/2. So right here we have 0/7 is the same as 0, 3.57 is the same as 1/2, and 7/7 is the same as 1 whole. I need to place 3/7 on my number line, so I'm doing the same thing. I'm using my control key, and I'm clicking 1, 2, 3/7 and dragging them to my number line. Once I do that, I see where that ends, and I see is that closest to 0, 1/2, or 1 whole. It ends right here, which is very close to that 1/2, so I'm going to put 1/2 here. When you're typing in a fraction on these, you do the number, and then you click the backslash key, which is the same key as the question mark. You just don't press shift. and then the number 2 for 1/2. When you get done, if you press space one time, you'll see it makes it a little bit smaller so that you can tell that's a fraction compared to a whole number. Step 5 is then add the benchmark numbers together. Well, let's think about candy bars. If I have one whole candy bar plus another half of a candy bar, I'm going to have 1 and 1/2. And again, I'm going to press the space bar, and then it should fit right like that. You can then see the whole number, and the fraction is a little bit smaller because after I did 1/2 and I pressed the space bar, it looks like that. This is one type of problem you're going to do today. You're going to do addition and subtraction like this with the number bars. Then you're going to have another type of problem that you do today. It's still estimating, but this time you're not going to get the numbers or the fraction bars. This time you're just going to place an X on the correct spot. So I'm going to show you how to do that. Step 1 is the exact same. You're going to write the equivalent fractions to 0, 1/2, and 1/2. So for this one, I would start with 5/6, and I would say, well, the equivalent fractions, I need to keep my denominator the same, are all going to have a 6 in the denominator. 0 is the same as 0/6. 1/2 would have all of the pieces, and 6 divided by 2 is 3. Half of 6 is 3, so 3/6 is my equivalent fraction to 1/2. Then it says place the X on the number line for where the fraction should go. So this time I'm just going to look and see where do I think this should go. I'm placing 5/6. I know that's bigger than 3/6, but smaller than 6/6. When I do that, I would kind of think to myself and envision that on here. So if this is 3, 4 might go right here, then 5, then 6. So it would go right about here. Once I've placed that X, I know that 5/6 is closer to 6/6 than it is to 3/6. So when it gets to step 3, where it says under the first fraction, write the benchmark it is closest to, I know it's closest to 1/2. So I'm going to put a 1 there. Then I repeat steps 1 through 3 for the second fraction. So again, I can see my denominator is 11. 0 is going to be the same as having 0 pieces out of 11. 1/2 means I have every single piece. So if I cut it into 11, that means I have all 11 pieces. Now, to make this simpler for myself, I'm going to go one number down to get to an even number. 1 less than 11 is 10. Half of 10 is 5. And then the 1 that I went down to get from 11 to 10, I'm going to cut that in half, which is 0.5. 5.5 is half of 11. 5 and 5/10 is half of 11. Same thing here, I'm going to then place the X where it goes. Well, if this is 5.5, 6/11 is going to be just a little bit after that. So once I place that, it's very easy for me to see that is much closer to 1/2 than it is to 0 or 1/2. So right here, I'm putting 1/2. Remember that you put for fractions, the 1, the backslash, the 2, and then a space. Then I subtract the benchmark numbers. So I say 1/2 minus 1/2. So like if I have a whole candy bar and I eat half of it, I would have 1/2 left. So you're going to do some problems on your slides that look just like the ones I just showed you. You're going to have a sum and a difference where you're using the fraction bars, and a sum and a difference where you're using the X's. Then you're going to have some review problems. So this is a review from last week where you are adding fractions and finding the best answer. On this one, you drag the circle to your answer, so you just drag it over to which one it is. But make sure that you're showing your work on your whiteboard, taking a picture and putting it right here in order to get credit. And then right here, you're subtracting fractions. Make sure you're showing your work on your whiteboard. It's a review from last week. Take a picture, put it right here, and type your answer into the box below right here. Remember, when you're taking a picture, you can just click right here on Insert Image, and then click Camera to insert your image. Once you're done with all of those problems, you rate yourself on how you did today and then submit your slides on Schoology.